make it today. Nilufer, good afternoon. I don't know if I've pronounced that right.
You did. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. So let's get going, shall we? Never punish good behaviour. People who are late for meetings, it's their fault, not yours. Don't wait around for them. So let's share the screen with my slides on. And today we're going to look at resistance to change, unpacking the hidden reasons behind pushback. Who's here that's this the first time at the forum? How many newbies have we got? I can see one hand up. Couple of hands. So yeah, sorry. I do so many things, and I see people in so many different places with events. I never know which ones they've come to when I've met you before. But thank you for coming. So resistance to change. We are on forum 5 of a series of 13. Afternoon, Kirsty. Welcome to you all. We'll get to know each other as we go. I'm not going to do that thing where everyone falls asleep and no one's listening to what anyone's name is or what the job title is, because nobody cares. They might care about you, but they don't care about your job title. They mean nothing. If you don't know me, I am the author of the Change Ninja book series. I'm calling it a series because there's 2 published and there's a 3rd that has been initiated. So hopefully that will be written this year and out next year sometime. First book is Change in the Workplace and How to Ninja Other People in the Workplace, and comes with the 4-day Ninja Challenge. If you want to be a black belt ninja, do get in touch with me or connect after and we can send you details on that. The second book is about change when it's emotional. That might be at work, it might be at home, but that's stuff that really, really is hard to do. The churns, the doubts, the anxieties. How do you manage your way through all of that using the same change management principles you might use it in the workplace for a project? So that comes with a retreat. If anyone's going through anything or big decisions about life, get in touch. There's stuff I can share on that. Enough about me. You want to know how to manage change. So I always start my session with hopes and fears. Why are you here? What do you want out of the next 30 minutes? What are your greatest hopes for today? If you could go skipping down your virtual corridor, what will I have done? And anything you don't want me to do, any fears about today's session, anything you really don't want me to do. So just have a little think, and please do just shout out when you're ready or pop them in the chat box.
Tammy, hi. For me, it's just to learn something new so it helps me adapt to change quicker and faster.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I was just going to say exactly that, actually, for me too. Yes, learning something new or putting something in my mind that I hadn't forgotten about to help deal with resistance.
For me, it's just to validate what I'm thinking is possibly right or possibly wrong. It's just getting that validation that I'm at least on the right pathway.
Oh, what if it doesn't validate? Is that a fear? You've been doing it wrong all this time.
I'm happy to change, and I'm always looking to improve. So
okay,
happy to be proven wrong.
I'm sure it would just enhance what you already do. Well, hopefully enhance it. Brilliant. Anyone else? I'm going to add one that everyone interacts. I do like interactive sessions. I'm not here to just do a webinar while you do your emails. Any fears? Connect, brilliant. So you're all on here. It would be great if people start connecting. I am hoping to start a community later this year. So Graham's in Dundee. Brilliant. We've got lots of Scottish people here today. At least 4 of us. Kirsty's Scotland as well. Anyone else? Got Graham, Brian, myself, and Kirsty. Anyone else in Scotland? Andrew's here from Birmingham. Oh, John from Glasgow. It's the Scottish Ninja Contingent. What would we call those? My Scottish accent is terrible. I'm not even going to have a go. We got no fears. We're fearless today. I really fear that I just waffle on a lot of rubbish. I'll try not to do that. So no fears. Our hopes are we want to learn something new, validate what we've been doing and enhance it, interact with each other, get connected, and start to become true change ninjas. So how do we deal with resistance? Does anyone get this sort of no in the face on a regular basis from other people? Whenever you're trying to do anything, it might be at home or at work, they're just They just refuse point blank. No reason, no rhyme or reason. They just say no. When we're struggling with change, the challenges we face are mostly to do with other people saying no. They might say it's the system. They might say we can't do this because this is not how we do things around here. We've got policy, it's too risky, it's whatever it is. 9 times out of 10, they're using the system to hide behind it. It's not the system that needs to change, it's the approach to change that we need to change so that people are less able to say no and less want to say no. System's probably fine. We all know people who say no because it's too risky, but will then go and do something that has higher risk. So it's a choice they're making. It's often a subconscious choice. They use the system so they can say no and justify it because they're afraid of the change. They don't know it's going to be a good change, so they want to say no, and they will find a reason. So yeah, this stuff really works with kids as well, especially teenagers. I've got some great examples of that. So resistance mostly comes in the form of other people fearing the change in some way and subconsciously saying, I don't want to do this, and finding an excuse to do it rather than thinking about it in more detail. It can make us shake our heads in frustration, jump up and down, stamp our feet, banging our heads against the brick wall. It can be really, really challenging. It saps our mojos. We spend lots and lots of time trying to convince them. You can't change other people. You can only change yourself. So trying to change other people's views is really, really hard because they need to want to change. So Ninja's all about understanding where the block's coming from and finding ways to get them to realize that they're wrong themselves. Because going in and telling someone the benefits of why you're doing something, they're just going to dig in their feet. They're not listening. They've got their fingers in their ears. It serves no purpose and it just frustrates you even more. So it's all about trying to work out what's driving them and shifting that behavior. It can often feel like they're battling against you. You're trying to get the ball in the goal. That's your, and you aim for the goal, this great project, and people are being awkward and they're kicking it the other way. They're doing their own goals. So it's all about trying to get everyone lined up so that you're all facing the same way and have the same goal. The thing is, their goal might be different to yours for the same thing. So it's working out what their needs are. So I'm going to introduce something called Stakeholder Grid 2. You're probably wondering what Stakeholder Grid 1 is, but you really can jump straight into 2. It is on the website if you want the first one. This is one of the best stakeholder grids I've used. I'm guessing when you're thinking about change at work, you list your stakeholders, is that right? You might plot them against importance, against influence. Does anyone do that? Groups of people.
Yeah.
Do you know, I used to work in public sector government. We're always high importance and high influence. They didn't give a monkey's backside about our projects. They weren't interested, but we paid great heed to them because they were so important and so influential and they could take our funding away. They weren't interested. It was like complete waste of time. We sent out, you'd communicate with them. They weren't interested. So thinking about your stakeholders and who are the individuals that you need to deliver your change. And I say stakeholders, but that's anyone involved. If this is a home project you're working on, it could be the teenage kids, it could be granny, whoever it is. Who do you need, individual people, to deliver your project, your change? And quite often when we do stakeholder maps, we list them by groups. We might say HR, IT, procurement, the rest of the family, whoever it is. They're all going to have a different view on your change. So who are the actual people in those groups that you need to get on board with your change, that will become advocates for their group? Who are you going to be working with in HR? Who are you going to be working with in IT? Because until you understand that individual's perspective, you can't engage with them the right way. You'll just communicate with them and hope that they agree. So name your stakeholders, the key people you need to be on board with the change you're trying to deliver. And once you've named them, we then need to decide which of these grid categories they are in. So if you've got some people just now, think as you go which one they're in. So we're going to go around from the top right. So imagine you have people that agree with your project, they agree with the goals, and they understand what it is you're trying to do. Give me a word that you might use to describe that kind of person. Ally, brilliant.
Collaborator.
Collaborator,
Supporter.
supporter, superb. Now, these are really good people, and you probably want to spend a lot of time with them because they're supporting what you do and they like what you do and you get on with them and they're great people. You don't need to spend a lot of time with them because guess what? They're already on board. So we call these people allies, collaborators, supporters. You might call them your pal, your friend. So trick with these is to keep them on board, keep them informed, but don't burn lots of time and energy with them because guess what? You don't need to. You might want to use them as advocates. So you might have a pal in HR and you might have someone in HR who's disagreeing. Use your pal from HR to try and influence the other people. So use them as advocates where you can, where you're struggling, but don't spend too much time with them just because they make you feel good, because they will make you feel good, but it's not going to change the outcome of your project. So moving over to top left, people who understand what we're trying to do, they're smart cookies, they know exactly what we're trying to do, but they are disagreeing. How might you call these? You don't need to be polite.
Critiques.
Enemies,
Critique.
adversaries, heretics.
Heretics, love it. Anyone else?
Pain in the asses.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to call those I call them pitters, but yeah, that's what it stands for, if you like an acronym. So we've got people, they're smart, they understand it, and they disagree. And we're like, and you keep trying to explain it and tell them the benefits, but still they disagree. So, and I'm going to tell you how to deal with those next. So you need to find out, these people, what is it they're disagreeing with? They may know something you don't know. And until you know why they really, really disagree, you're not going to get anywhere, because they have some reason for disagreeing. They're smart, so they understand it. So they're going to have a reason for disagreeing. Bottom left, we've got people who they don't agree with us, but we know they haven't got a clue what we're trying to do. They're bad-mouthing our projects, our change, they're gossiping about, and this is terrible, it will never work. But we know that they don't understand it. If you're running an AI project, you'll have people everywhere going, this is a waste of time, blah, 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 blah. But you know that they don't understand AI, because hardly anyone does yet. So what might you describe them as? How might you describe someone who doesn't agree, but you know they don't understand? Difficult. Yeah, they're difficult.
Luddites.
Luddites. Anyone else?
Graham's saying scared in the chat.
Yeah. It's good. The tip with this is if you come up with your own description of them, you'll find you start to use them all the time when you're facing these challenges. So it'll remind you of them. So what have I got in here as a description? I've put in there they're a bit daft, a bit stupid. I know we don't like that word, it's not a nice word, but they're disagreeing with something they don't understand. Why would you disagree with it if you don't understand it? But they do. So we need to build trust with them. We need to get them to really understand it before we can shift their thinking. And finally, box 4. People who are agreeing, they're nodding, they're sitting around the table going, this is a great project, I'm all behind you, Kirsty. Love it. And then when it comes to them doing the thing that you need them to do, they disappear. All you can see is that trail of dust as they run off down the corridor. How might we describe these? So they're saying they agree, but as soon as you need them to do something, you don't see them for dust.
Superficial.
Superficial, yeah. Invisible.
Flakers.
What, sorry, was that saying?
Flakers.
Peter, I think you said something.
Unreliable.
Unreliable. I think these are the most dangerous people. I've got them down as sheep, like the yes men. They're just saying yes. And you think they're your pals. You think you don't need to worry about them. And you might not spot them. And that's why I think they're the most dangerous, because if you don't spot them, if you've got 3 people sitting around your team, your project board meeting, agreeing that your project is the best project ever, and you think they're on board, and in 3 months' time, you need them to take time out with their team to do some training, and they're like, well, I haven't got time. I never agreed to do that. We all know those people. Yeah, it's a great project, but I never agreed to be involved. Didn't agree to actually do anything. You might not spot them, so they're going to delay your project at some point. They're going to be really hard to shift there.
I mean, is it a bit more dangerous that these people can actively underneath it all be acting against your project?
Yeah.
So they're like an iceberg, you know.
Absolutely.
What you see above the surface is all fine and dandy, but what's going on underneath is not what you want.
Yeah.
It's actually negative.
Absolutely. You have no idea what they're really thinking. You don't really know, but you think they're on board and they're not. So they are sheep in there can be wolf in sheep's clothing. Sorry. So understanding your stakeholders by person. Who are the key people in each of the groups that I need to work with, that I need to get on board, and where do I think they sit? So to do this, you have to name them as people. If you just put down IT or finance, you're not going to know. Finance, probably important because they hold the budgets. How much influence they have, don't know. But it's not going to tell you anything about how you engage with them to get them on board with your project to do the things that you need them to do. But it might be Jim or Mary in finance that you know is going to be your key contact. And Jim might think differently to Mary. So what do they as individuals think about your project? Which box would you put them in? And then you can work out how to deal with them. And this is getting into dealing with stakeholders on a one-to-one basis, possibly. But if you've got a bunch of core people that you need to drive your project forward on board, you're just going to deliver it because they're on board from the start. So all of this is about thinking about this up front before you even approach them. So how do we deal with them? So pals, just don't spend too much time with them. Don't upset them, but you don't need to spend time with them. For the pain in the backsides, one thing to think about is what else might be true. You're a smart person, you're disagreeing with me, and I don't understand why you're disagreeing with me. So what else might be true can be a really quick question to ask yourself. What do they know that I don't know? How might I find out what that information is? So going to them and saying, but the benefits of this, they're still going to disagree because they know something you don't know. If they don't know something you don't know and they are just being awkward, they'll soon shift if you use a tool like IDQB. I don't have time to go into it today, but if you can state the issue that you have, and when you're doing this, the issue isn't the issue that you have with this person, it's the issue that your change or your project is going to resolve. So if you're implementing an AI project and this person disagrees, it's not around what they're disagreeing on, it's the reason why the AI project became a thing in the first place, which might be to do with cost or efficiencies or something. So what is the reason for your change in the first place? What is the problem that it's going to solve? So present that problem. Then present all of the data you know and the facts. No opinions. Don't say, we believe that it will give these benefits. What are the data and facts? We're top heavy on staff. We're running out of money. We've not got new sales, yada, yada, whatever it is. And then ask them a question. What can I do to shift this around? Or what will you do to resolve this issue? Always make it a you or a me question. So you're going to do an action or they're going to do an action. Never do a we, because that just ends up in a wishy-washy conversation. If they genuinely have a reason for this being the wrong solution, at that point you will find out what it is. If they are just being awkward and perhaps they've been for whatever reason, that will shift their thinking. 9 times out of 10, they'll come around to your solution because you've done the thinking, you've done the research, you know your solution is the right solution. If you've done that, they will mostly change. You can get turkeys to vote for Christmas with that process. But issue of why you need the solution in the first place, Data and facts, no opinions, no emotions, just data and facts that they can't argue with, and a killer question. What will you do? What do you want me to do? It sounds really simple when I say it, but the question's really hard because the question needs to be into relation to the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So think about what you want as an answer to that question to get the question. It's the best tool you'll ever learn, ever. It's a tool I wouldn't do without, and it's really hard to do. It seems simple, but it's really hard to do. So practice it on the kids. Who's got a 10-year-old? Someone said. What's their issue? What's their biggest challenge of getting them to do something?
If it was me, if it's got a 10-year-old, my biggest challenge is just trying to.
I can hardly hear you. Was it Graham? Yeah.
Yeah, apologies. So the biggest challenge is that she doesn't really always understand what we're asking because she's only 10.
Okay.
So it's making sure that the question that's being posed is actually understood and realised before we seek a solution.
Yeah. So if you give me an example of something, if you can, if you're happy to share.
Why does she need to get up for school every morning?
Okay. So the issue is you don't like getting out of bed in the morning.
Yep.
The data is you have to go to school. It's not a choice. Or your friends are at school, they'll miss you. Mum and dad have to go to work. The school bus comes out. All of the data and facts, and they say, what would make it easier for you to get up in the morning? And what you're doing is allowing her to come up with a solution.
Indeed, yeah.
So it's always about, if you're asking them the question, you can't commit. I did one with somebody on unloading the dishwasher. Mum didn't want to unload the dishwasher every day. Kids weren't having any of it. She'd bribed them, persuaded them, all of that stuff. None of it worked because they didn't have an issue with the dishwasher being unloaded by Mum. It was only Mum. The issue was nothing to do with the dishwasher. The issue was to do with the fact that everyone needed a clean bowl and cup and mug for breakfast. So the issue is you want breakfast before you go to school. The data is we need 5 plates, 5 mugs, 5 glasses, 5 spoons. Everyone gets up late. Everyone leaves the house at 8:30. You want a snack when you come home from school. Just data. The question she asked the kids was, how will you make sure you've got something clean to eat from? And let them come up with a solution. Their solution was nothing to do with the dishwasher or paper plates. They just said, we'll have our own bowls and mugs and we'll wash our own bowls and mugs. So they just wrote the names on them and they just wash their own. They don't care that Mum's fed up with doing the dishwasher because it's not their issue. The issue is the clean. So what is the reason that we need a solution and what will you do differently to get there? Absolutely works. Practice and practice, practice it until you've nailed it. It's really hard to do, but really you'll get those pain in the backsides into box B instantly. Any questions? Does that make sense? I'm whizzing through this, but you can get this stuff in the book or on my website.
What's the B, Tammy? IDQB, what's the B?
Build the solution together.
Okay.
So never present your solution unless they say, what do you think we should do? Never present your answer. You want them to come around to your answer by coming up with it themselves. And if that's what they do, then you have to go with that. Or they might have a different solution, but never give them the solution unless they ask you for your ideas.
How do you manage somebody who bounces between the boxes, who you seem to have them in box B, then they sort of, something comes up and they bounce into box A, become a pain in the arse. You then get them back and you think, okay, I've nailed this now. So you take your eye off the ball and they bounce back again. Something else comes up. That fundamentally, they're not trying to be difficult. They're just coming up with more issues. Which may or may not be relevant.
I would say they're probably in box D. So they're on board and then something comes along that they disagree with. So they hadn't really understood the implications of this change, which I'll come to in a minute. Right. Sometimes you just have to sometimes people will bounce around. If you're not sure, put them in the worst possible box that you could think of. So box C might be the worst box because then we could try and move them into A or B. But sometimes it is an ongoing. But if you learn these tools, you'll be able to do them in that meeting, in that instant. So it becomes less about pre-managing and more about in the moment. Okay, people won't notice you doing IDQB when you've nailed it. So, you know, just to confirm, the issue that we have is this is all the data that we know. What do you think we should do differently? Unless they have a better idea or solution, they're probably just grinding a beef. So I would say those people are probably in box D, and they're coming up with reasons to then say no later because the implications to them.
Okay.
So box C, these people are bad mouthing your change and they don't understand it. And you won't be able to change them because they don't understand it. The more you try and convince them, the more they will dig their heels in. There's a tool, again, it's on my website or it's in the book if you've got the book, called Gap Leap. And you can use Gap Leap for a business case as well. Essentially, you're describing the issue again. So the issue is we're running out of money, we've not got enough sales, and we've got too many, we're costing too much. If you're doing an AI project, for example, the issue is you need to go to school. It's not a choice. And then you describe, if we don't do anything about this, what's going to happen? And you get them to answer that question. I'm going to fall behind in class. I'm going to miss out on school activities that all my friends are involved in. I'm going to get into trouble with my teacher. What will happen if we fix the goal? What will happen if we fix that gap? I'll be top of my class. You'll reward me at the end of the term for being top of my class. I'll feel quite smart. I'll have more friends, whatever it is. And then you say, why haven't we fixed this yet? Why haven't we fixed this issue? Because I don't want to get up in the morning. I like my bed. So you're not describing solutions, but what you're doing is you're presenting you're getting them to come up with the business case almost. If we don't fix this issue, and the issue will be something they need to agree on, so it needs to be a core issue that needs resolving. If we don't fix it, what will happen? If we do fix it, what will happen, and why haven't we fixed it? And then you agree where we're going to start with the why haven't we fixed it. And that's where the solutions start to get generated from again. You're smart, you've done your homework, you know this is the right thing. So they, again, well, if we could automate 30% of our processes that are really mundane and nobody gets pleasure out of, it will reduce our overhead costs. So as a business, we'll continue to thrive. So you're educating them, but you're getting them to fill in the blanks. If you prepare it beforehand, you'll know what the answers are going to be. So if they don't come up with the right information, because they might not think of it, you can ask them, is that an issue? What about would you miss out on school activities if you don't go to school every day with your friends? They're going to have experiences you are. Is that an issue? So you're allowing them to come up with the data themselves, and that will shift them inside to thinking, actually, I do need to shift this. They then might go up into box A, because they might start to understand it, but still disagree with the solution, but you've got the IDQB for that, or they might go straight into box B. But get them to realize why there's to accept this issue is real and what will happen if you don't fix it and why it's not been fixed to date. Again, I don't have time to go into them in great detail, but if you can get in touch, and I can send you the tools, or you can look on my website for these, and there's a bit of guidance on there. Or you can buy the book if you've not got it. Any questions on that? It's a great tool to learn because it's also your instant business case. 20 minutes, you've got business case that you can present to your stakeholder group and board. That's the only level of detail they need. And they'll agree it, and then you can go off and tell them how much it's going to cost. So, sheep, the yes people, we've sort of talked about a little bit. When you think somebody's agreeing but you're not entirely sure, and they might start bouncing around a bit and starting to protest at some point, try and spot these up front, because I do think they're the most dangerous, because if you leave it too late, it could slow down or hinder your project. With these, you need to make sure they really understand the implications of the project for them. You know, I'm running this AI project, it's going to do this and this. I know you're really supportive of it, but in 3 months' time, we're going to come and look at the processes within your team. and see what we can automate with a view to taking 30% of your processes out of the system. And this is what I'm going to need you to do. We're going to need to free up time. We're going to need to put your team in training. We're going to, because then you'll find out what their objections are. And then they might jump into box C, they might jump into box A, but you've now got the tools of how to deal with that so you can be ready for it. But you need to be 100% sure that they know exactly what they've signed up for with their big nods and smiles and what you're going to need from them and when you're going to need it. And that's when you'll find out how much they agree with you. And again, if you do that at the start, it buys you time, if nothing else. You might not need them for another 6 months, but it means you've got 6 months to work through all this rather than wait until, all right, we're coming to you next week for some training. And they're like, oh, I never agreed to that. We all know those people who said, I never agreed to that, because they didn't implicitly agree to it. So make sure that you know who they are and you've gone through the implications with them and that they understand what those implications are. Any questions on that? This is quite a lot here, I know. It's just a start of a 10 on the stakeholder grid. So that's it. I'm going to finish there on the teaching for today. So any thoughts or comments, or has it enhanced what we do already on stakeholders? Zane, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. I just wanted to ask, do you leave any of these grid boxes to last if, I mean, you work on the easiest ones first, essentially, or the most challenging ones first?
That's a good question. I would think about, and again, I don't sort of go who's most important and who's most influential, but who's going to really put the spanner in the works? Do you know, is it someone from IT who could absolutely delay this development? So let's really get them on board, because particularly if it's someone who's difficult and they're difficult in general, if you can win over that really difficult person and make them advocates, other people are going to shift as well. So it's you know, who are the personalities involved and who would be really good to have in the tent right from the start that would help bring other people into the tent. So think about it from that. So who's going to be good advocates? Who's going to lead, and possibly, you know, other people will follow suit if they agree. So it very much is down to personalities at that point.
Okay. Right.
Graham, good question about engaging the pals. I would say use them as much as you can, because it'll save you time and effort.
I think one thing I've spotted in the past is when we've done these kind of analyses is sometimes you identify somebody who isn't an ally, who basically has the power to kill your project, and at some point you have to realize there's no point flogging a dead horse. These people will not change. They have other agendas that you may or may not have access to, and I've certainly seen that with projects where I spent 10 years trying to build a plant or get a project approved to build a plant. And at the end of the day, he said that the CFO just wasn't interested and he wasn't going to support it, but he wouldn't say it directly. So as an exercise, it can actually tell you that you may have a desirable project, but you haven't got a viable project.
I'm back. Sorry about that. That's the downsides of living very remote in Scotland. But it sounds like there was good conversation as I left.
No, I was just saying, sorry, it was, I've had examples in the past where you realize through the analysis that actually whilst you might have a desirable project, you haven't got a viable one because you've got people who can kill it. And you need to tease that out very quickly, otherwise you're going to waste a lot of time. Yeah, it's not just time, it's your motivation, your mojo, all of that. If people are going to be, so doing this, I would do this before I even mention my project.
to anyone. I would do it straight away and think, who could kill this? The other thing is your project might not be viable. Sometimes we're given projects to do and we don't start with the problem statement. We just assume there's a problem. So you might be prepared for finding out things that might shift your solution. So it might shift your project, but you want the best outcome. So be mindful of that, but open to that. But yes, I can't remember what I was saying as I got kicked out. But yeah, I think it does come down to personalities and really thinking who is gonna trip me up. So thank you for keeping that chat going as I dropped out. Any other thoughts or questions?
I actually think that was a really good way to say it. Tell me who could trip me up. That's a really good one-liner.
And it's not that they're going to trip you up out of badness. So most people don't say no out of badness. It's just their subconscious has said this might not be good for me, or they might have experience of something similar and it was a bad outcome from them, or they might be really busy and they don't have time to do something else. So that their brain is making this decision for them without them necessarily realizing that they've said no. They might, and that's when the hiding behind the system comes in. So most people aren't being stubborn or difficult for the sake of it. They just don't have a good experience of this type of thing, or they don't understand it, or there's lots of uncertainty, or they're super busy. So be kind. There are some people who are just a pain. And at some point, if someone's an absolute pain and everyone thinks they're a pain, don't waste your time and energy on them if you don't need to. You can't win everyone over. But have a look at the other tools and see how you get on with them. So I would like to know what your biggest learning from today is. I'm going to ask you all your biggest learning or surprise. And I'm going to, there's not too many of us, so I can go around the room and ask everybody. So I'll just give you a few seconds to write that down. And then I'm just going to whiz through the list of people. So it'll be alphabetical from your first name. So have your mic ready and on if you can. Aisha, biggest surprise or learning?
Hello, everyone. So for me, my biggest learning from today is kind of like similar to what John said. Sometimes if you're not asked for a solution, don't offer it and wait for them to ask you first before you just proceed and give a solution that they may or may not even want it. So that was like a very big one for me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Aldona. I'm not sure if you're there. Claire. Not everyone will want to talk, of course.
For me, it was asking the question to them, like, what will you do?
Yeah.
I tend to be like, what are we going to do, to try and help and support them along? But it's more putting it back on them. I think that was a good learning for me.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. And you can, if you practice that question, because sometimes you can say, what will you do and how can I help you? And they'll say, oh, just do what you wanted to do, and they'll put in some caveat. And it's a really good way to win people over. And again, it works at home as well. Thank you. Graham. I'm hoping Graham's going to get the kids to school. Not there. John B.
Hello. Yeah, just really simple. What you had said quite near the start. What's the problem? Keep it to facts and data. Not here's the benefit.
Superb. Thank you. Kirsty.
I like depersonalising the I and you and simplifying with a pain pal daft sheep, using that to plot your people. I love it.
Yeah, you'll have a lot in the top left, Kirsty. And actually, no, more in the bottom left. Don't understand and don't agree. I used to work with Kirsty many years ago. Maria.
For me, it's about asking
wanting to know what is the answer that you want to get. And yeah, I think it was, and sometimes is your pain is not their pain, but which you know, you can understand that as an you know, as a coach, as an empathy person. However, asking from that point of view, the dishwasher example of the dishwasher, simple, or at work, whatever it is, that project has nothing to do with me. But if you go underneath, you can get to that person and sympathize. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, quite often the issue isn't everybody's issue. So brilliant reflection. Thank you, Mariam.
Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Lovely. I think I've heard it before in coaching, and just to reiterate what the first two people said, but asking them what you can do, what can you do? Because I know my biggest problem is giving the solution.
Yeah.
Don't know how to counter that one, but I think I do it in my personal life as well, where I always have the solution, I always have to fix it, and I'm the go-to family person, but I do it at work as well. So
okay, yeah, it's a good one to watch. If people ask you what they think you should do, they should do what the answer is, and that's fine, but don't go straight in with it, because people will close up and you might not notice it. Martin. No, Martin. Nilufer.
Yeah, I think it was validating for me because I always kind of knew that we need to know the individuals. You know, what do they think? Why do they think this way? And I often in improvement work that I've done globally, you know, in different countries and different cultures, I have to rely on people who know the people, because I would not be able to know. And it's always like, why do they do this? So I kind of was always doing that. But what I'm kind of learning now, and what I want to learn better, is this power of questions, because I feel like with questions, we give people space to influence, to, like, I don't know, it's like empower
Absolutely.
people, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to learn better this art of asking questions. Thank you.
Now you should come on my course. We have lots of tools for asking questions. Thank you for that. Peter.
I think most people said this already, the idea of don't give your own answers, you know, ask the question of what other people think, unless you're specifically asked to give an answer. I think that's one that always resounds with me. I think the other thing, I think just raised the issue of culture, is you've got to be careful with some cultures where people will appear to be in the top right corner, but actually are somewhere else. It's just culturally they're brought up not to say no.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and so you have to just be careful when you're dealing with those sorts of environments. Just make yourself culturally aware of where people might be, and be prepared to test that and give them the space to tell them what they really think. Yeah,
absolutely. And not everyone will say no, but they'll not do the thing. So it's, you know, what are they not doing? Sometimes it's the hidden words that you need to look out for. Brilliant. Thank you. Rona. No, Rona. Sarah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said about the pains and you know, thinking about what else might be true. So I think I've been guilty of assuming that what I know is, you know, the full knowledge, and they're just literally being pains. But yeah, if I sort of challenge myself to ask what else might be true, then I think I'm going to learn a lot. So yeah, I'm going to be a bit more open to that.
Yeah. It's a great question for lots of things before you respond to anything. You know, if someone sent you a message or they've not responded to a message before you go guns blazing, it's a good question to ask yourself. Thank you. Tarsim.
For me, it's just identifying the different stakeholders and where they fit in on the grid, and then putting an action plan together depending on what their position is. Because I've got a feeling I spend a lot of my time with one particular section. And I think I just need to be more aware of the other one. So thanks for sharing that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Zane.
Yeah, very good webinar. I think, firstly, I think it's really interesting, the sheep group, which basically they're in agreement, but for something they don't understand. So I think that's quite an interesting category to put people in. But also then just really understanding their fear for all the boxes, their actual fear about what is going to be taken away from them. I think that's usually the case of what they're going to lose potentially. And yeah, just coaching and questioning them through it. So yeah, I do have a habit of wanting to force a solution. So it's interesting that other people have said that, but yeah, that's my takeaway.
Yeah, the trick to that is, remember, you've probably got there in your own time. So you've gone through the problem, and and they haven't. You're just going and saying, we're going to change the email system next week, and it's going to be much better. And they're like, what? So you need it's giving people that time and the data so that they can get there themselves to realize this is a really, really good change. Think about when we said no to things as well.
Well, exactly. Something else that you actually said was with your example of this is happening in 3 months. It may not always be 3 months, but giving advanced communication, I think, is also a really good key thing.
Brilliant. I love Maria's got the book there and getting it out. It's a great read if you've not got it. I'm biased though. So great reflection.
I spotted in the sorry, Tammy, I spotted in the book you said earlier that you had that the IDQB, and I thought I'm gonna have a look at that in more detail because I want to learn a little bit more how to master it a little bit in the future because I can see the benefit. So I thought,
it is absolutely, out of all of the tools, you can really ninja at everything if you can nail that one, and if you can do it in the conversation. And it's really hard to do. The first time I did it, it took me at least an hour, possibly two, to prepare it, but I got the result I wanted in 30 seconds after 6 months of trying all of the other known techniques. So spend the time preparing it if you're going to use it for real and in earnest at work. Really make sure you've got it right before you go in, which is why practicing at home is good, because you'll know if it's worked or not. But I've had people get dogs and all sorts of personal things out of it. So if you want a dog or a new car, the last one was a new car. Someone wanted a new car, her husband disagreed. I emailed her later that night. She says, we're going to see cars tomorrow.
Fantastic.
But the issue there was not that she needed a new car. The issue was she didn't feel safe driving her old car with the kids in. But the husband had just heard she wanted a new flashy car, and he was a mechanic and he could fix her old car. He didn't know about the fear of breaking down on the motorway. So as soon as you present all of that, it's really difficult to argue against. So yes, it does work. So please do get in touch. I've loved all of the chat and reflection, hopefully some good learning. We didn't have any fears, so that's good. Have we learned something new, validated what we already know, connected with some new people, and we've all interacted? I think we've achieved our agenda. So another tool, use hopes and fears at the start of your meeting. Get everyone to inform the agenda, get rid of the fears. It will create a nice safe space, and you'll crack those meetings as well. People will be much more engaged if they've agreed to the agenda up front with you. So thank you very much. What are we having next? So in 2 weeks time, 2 weeks today, these events are fortnightly. Debunking change fatigue. Has anyone heard of change fatigue? Yeah, it's the latest buzzword, isn't it? It's rubbish, it's nonsense, but you'll need to come back in 2 weeks time to find out why I think it's a nonsense. Thank you all. Do connect in. If you want to know more about the course, please do drop me a line on LinkedIn or my email, and I can share with you the details of that when the next one's running. And I'll hopefully see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.